Hello everyone and welcome back to the Hearthstone Grand Prix here at DreamHack Winter in Jönköping. I'm Raven, and a couple of guys have just switched around chairs a little bit more than anything. We still have Sol and Lothar to bring you this next game, and I'm a little bit jealous, to be honest, because the next match coming up is going to be Nicslay versus Ness in the continuation of the top 16, and Ness being one of my teammates. Fingers crossed for him, but maybe get more of an unbiased cast if you two do it.
Exactly
well,
what I would say.
I'm still going to root for my compatriot a little bit. I've got to get a little bit of UK pride in there at least. Ness is a good friend of mine, but why don't you tell us a little bit about Nicslay first, Lothar?
Nicslay was playing in the last call, and that's, well, actually I would say a good achievement,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Pretty good, yeah.
Pretty good, right? It's a hard tournament because it's single elimination, basically like this one. It's a top finish, right? You want to get to the top place and well, go to BlizzCon. So it was for sure devastating for him to lose that in the top 8. But now he has a chance to redeem himself and well, take the title of DreamHack.
Yeah, I mean, from Nicslay was played in winter for HCT, so that's what helped him actually get the points as well for last call, as well as continuing to play throughout the whole year as well, because the last call tournament was, of course, the points accumulation from the whole of the HCT year. And he sort of, he played in the winter season, performed okay. He got to top 8, which is a very great performance overall. But since then was a little bit quiet until last call, and then he's reappeared again, and he's been streaming on and off as far as I'm aware through there, but not really made a tournament impact as of yet. So he's definitely looking forward to this, and he's making top 16 is fantastic, as we've said quite often, and yeah, looking forward to top 8 is what he'll be doing. But he's got to beat Ness. We can actually just check out the bracket to see how we're looking so far now.
By the way, is it Nicslay or is it Nicslay? I mean, Lay or Slay?
Slay.
Nicslay.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yep,
we don't actually have the bracket, but it doesn't matter. I feel like I like good avoidance tactics there, but yeah, my bad.
But yeah, Ness on his part, we should really talk about him a little bit. He's kind of just a little mini JJ in terms of his Swiss dominance. We've talked about Super JJ's performances in Swiss a whole lot during this tournament, and it is incredible. Ness, from his own part, primarily in the other major Swiss tournament that we have in Hearthstone, is Insomnia True Silver, which is held in the UK, and Ness has a phenomenal Swiss record going through that, as well as a good record at DreamHack as well. So he is no slouch himself.
Yeah, and I
Mini
think
JJ, did you relate that to the size of the
probably as well. Yeah, Ness is not tall compared
He is
to
about
JJ.
4 foot shorter than JJ, yeah.
as most people are, actually. But yeah, I think the thing that really sticks out for me in terms of Ness is that from, we've obviously known him quite a while, but the improvement tournament to tournament, I remember when I first really saw him come out in his first True Silver performance, he played well, but he was blatantly very nervous when he was being streamed. He made, you were there as well, of course, Lothar.
And I was kind of to blame as well, because when Ness was playing in the final, almost everyone from the pro players was upset about the quality of play that Ness displayed during the final. But so far after that tournament, I have to say that Ness actually stepped up.
Yeah,
and is playing way better.
100%. And every single tournament he competes at, he's like way less nervous. He's just, he's getting used to it. It's experience at the end of the day. He's not really making the sort of shaky plays that were blatantly down to his nerves. So, further back at the start of this year, actually. And yeah, his performance, you can't really actually argue with at this point.
Yeah, he's also got himself together with a stronger practice group than before, which is, something that a lot of people underestimate. But obviously, his Torpedo teammates, Ball Control and Jambray are a huge part of that. He's also practicing with people like Tic Tac, who are very, very strong players as well. So he's really got himself a core of people that he can rely on.
He's actually been working with Sixo on and off as well, which is not a bad person to practice with. But no more, we have to wait for this game. It is going to kick off. Ness versus Nicslay, game 1. Enjoy, Lothar and Sol.
Thank you, Raven. By the way, I love some of those nicknames. It's like ridiculous. Tic Tac.
Anyway, Tic Tac is a pretty solid name, I think, overall. I'll go along with that.
We have another Zoo vs Zoo matchup. And this time it's Nicslay on the play while Ness is on the draw. So the luck is on Nicslay side, but will it matter? Because his opening hand is not ideal. The Defender of Argus, that's actually something that you mentioned in the last game, right? RDU played it without those Defender of Argus, and it seems like it's actually a good strategy.
I think he said he cut down to 1, right? Just to reduce the overall clunkiness of his potential draws. And yeah, The only time it's really good against Zoo is when you have a grip on the board anyway. You know, it's kind of the very definition of a win more card in this matchup. It's very, very useful against some other classes, but RDU really got a handle on the fact that there was going to be a lot of Zoo in this tournament, really tilted his decks towards that matchup. And I talked about this in the last series I cast just now. It really does seem like a lot of these series are being defined by who is winning the Zoo Mirror, and quite often we've seen that Zoo Mirror coming in game 2, but these players have just decided to get this out of the way straight away.
Let's
and
do
just
this
get
already.
this done. Yeah.
Right, let's do this already. What do you think about the play when Ness didn't decide to actually go for the coin and play the second flame? Don't you think that playing 3-2 minions on turn 1 is actually, you know, getting head on board?
I think Imgang Boss is just the absolute daddy of this matchup, so I definitely don't mind this coin play into the Imgang Boss. He has been incredibly rewarded by picking up Imgang Boss number 2, so that's a factor of playing to his outs as well. It's not just Imgang that makes that draw relevant, it's actually the Councilman as well, because I talked about the problem of dropping Councilman on an empty board in the previous series, but when you've preempted it with the Imgang Boss, even if you play Councilman on turn 3, you can always trade your Imgang Boss to get that 1 buff, make it come down as a 2/5, which is suddenly a much more powerful minion against Zoo.
From what I talk with the players, this is also one of the reasons why some people play on one Councilman. Because in the mirror matches, it's actually not that great of a card.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's something that can really, really snowball and take the game away from your opponent if there is no answer to it. But it's that awkward turn 3 where you're not being able to play one of your 3-drops on turn 3 to any great effect is very, very detrimental, especially if you do have the coin when you're already a little bit unfavored just by that nature. You want to go coin 3 into 3 a lot of the time to compensate for that. And in the Zoo Mirror, it's almost always the Imgang Bosses you'd rather have than the Councilman.
Yeah, that's true. Now, this is a very interesting situation because if that second minion that Ness had played would have been anything else than a Imgang Boss, and the option for Nix would be to attack with his Imp, spawn an Imp, and play Defender Vargas. But now it's very awkward. He can't really attack into a minion because then he gives an additional out to his opponent, but at the same time, his Imp will be a 2-2, so it will value the 1-1 that is being spawned. But still, a 2-2 is a great target for a 2-4 Imgang Boss, so...
But it's just, I mean, process of elimination, right? What else is the turn here? Like life tap, flame imp. The 2 flame imps just get farmed by the 2 Imgang Boss. So this wasn't a good play, but everything else that he had was worse, was basically the scenario that he ended up with. Yeah,
having 2 bosses on the board in this match was actually devastating.
Yeah, you can see this absolute havoc that the double Imgang Boss start is wreaking on Nixlay's board, and he's going to need a big swing turn very, very soon to be able to get this back. And even this amount of dominance from Ness, he still has 2 mana's worth to come, and with that Direwolf on the board, definitely well worth going as wide as he possibly can. Places the Voidwalker next to the Direwolf, manages to keep his Direwolf centered in the end to get maximum efficiency out of the daisy chain effect of the buffs, because of course positioning is one of the small nuances in playing Zoo that a lot of players do manage to overlook.
That's something I would really like to see more in Hearthstone in general, in every single class, positioning on the board to have an impact on the game, because that's an additional layer of skill that you have to be, you know, at the top of your game.
Yeah, it was interesting because one of the adventures had that mechanic with the portals, and you had to interrupt them on each side, and I really did wonder whether that was, you know, Blizzard just testing the water to add more of those positional board mechanics, which I really do think would add like a nice layer of depth and complexity to the game. But so far we haven't seen that kind of thing just yet, but I do agree with you. I would love to see it somewhere down the line.
Imagine the chess mechanics in usual Hearthstone game, right? That would be actually crazy. The game design would have been totally different, but at the same time, it would be so skillful to navigate that.
So Doomguard comes down, but the Doomguard that can potentially come back to answer it here with initiative is a huge deal if Ness does decide to go for it, but he can still comfortably answer this Doomguard on board without using his own. But the only problem here, I mean, he's far enough ahead that he could afford to play out the rest of his hand and then Doomguard afterwards, but the fact he already has 1 discard card in his hand doesn't really seem like that's worthwhile. He's not going to get full value out of his hand either way, so does just go ahead and Doomguard in the end, and he's almost already at the point where he's just threatening lethal over the next turn or 2.
Yep, I really agree with that play. The discard outlets right now in the deck kind of make most of the decisions are really easy when it comes to do I keep the Doom Guard, do I play the Doom Guard? It was way harder back then because you couldn't even get back on the board without life taps.
The only question I have about the exact way he played the play is that he really narrowed his board in by trading off the smaller minions instead of taking the value trade with the Doom Guard, and that's left him a little bit weak to Nicslay just being able to generate more stuff on the board than is available right now. So now coming down 3 minions to 2, sure he is threatening lethal with just about any draw, but if he doesn't pick it up, maybe there is just a tiny window. That window has been slammed shut so hard the glass has shattered as the Soulfire comes through, ending the game. Ness going up to a 1-0 lead, and so far, so many series, we have seen the winner of the Zoo Mirror snowball their way to victory. Is that going to be the case for Ness?
Well, we'll see that Nicslay is already picking up his warrior.
Yeah, we're cheating right now.
We're cheating.
What you should have just pretended to guess. You should have said, well, if I was Nicslay here, I would have queued warrior. And
now
then
we
you'd
know
look
that
like
I
a
don't
genius
cheat.
to the half of chat that aren't paying attention to the screen.
Well, we'll see that. Did warrior? I'm not sure. Like this. It seems like this metagame, almost no one has a really good answer to the Zoo decks. Like,
I've been talking about it all day so far. It just doesn't seem like there is a good answer, but a lot of players, Oskaka was one of them when he was interviewed, said that they brought Dragon Warrior as their answer to Zoo, potentially.
But is that an answer to Zoo? Because historically speaking, that's not my experience.
I mean, talk to the 2015 world champ, Lothar. I'm not going to argue the point, but he said he brought it to counter Zoo, but that's all a formality anyway. This is not Zoo. This is very much looking like the new build of N'Zoth Warrior that I've been playing a ton of recently as well.
It's actually sweet.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this deck. This was my main golden legendary farming tool in the Heroic Tavern Brawl. I picked up a 12 and an 11 win with this deck, so it's really, really enjoying playing this. Yeah, why not? Let's just get it out there, dude. Come on.
I played 3 times a priest, so...
Why? Why you make terrible life decisions like
well,
that?
you know, I was streaming, so I just wanted to have something interesting on the stream.
Valuing fun over golden legendaries. You are a very different man from me.
Yeah, I don't care about the shiny stuff, man.
Shiny stuff's awesome.
Okay, let's talk about the mulligan, because it seems like the Zoo actually has a really good opener again. Even though your opponent probably has the Axe,
Yes.
the Imp is still the gank boss, of course. Is the best answer to an early threat like that.
It really is, yeah. If your opponent has the Axe, then Imp Gang Boss is significantly better than Councilman. If they don't have the Axe, Councilman is a little better because it's hard for them to deal with, and it actually just pushes more damage quicker and gets you there. Councilman is vulnerable to, you know, Axe plus Slam or Axe plus Bash, which becomes available when they do get that initial condition of having the Axe. So now having the Axe come down, he'll be very, very happy to have the Imp Gang Boss in his hand. The only thing that interacts with this particularly well is a Ravaging Ghoul follow-up, but Ravaging Ghoul is actually surprisingly one of the cards that is starting to be cut out of these N'Zoth Warrior builds to start to make room for those extra minions like the Twilight Summoners and Barns that are coming in and just being so much of a threat in the mid-game.
That's correct, and even when you think about it, 1 damage AoE is not really that great against the current current Zoo decks, so not really surprised by that, although here wouldn't be that bad to have the Ghoul.
Yeah, Ghoul would be great in this situation, but you know, in such a Shaman-dominated meta, again, the good interactions for Ravaging Ghoul are in the early game. Fiery War Axe plus Ravaging Ghoul against a Totem Golem, for example.
Yep.
After that, really doesn't do anything. Even if they're just, you know, generating totems on the board, your Ravaging Ghoul really doesn't interact too well. They have Healing Totem, which can repair a lot of the damage from Ravaging Ghoul a lot of the time, so that's a big part of why we're seeing Ravaging Ghoul just fade away from Control Warrior builds just a little bit. Nicslay here, without that Ghoul, is just finding one little awkward turn here that he's going to have to try and navigate his way through.
And he is going to sacrifice his revenge. So basically what he says, if I would have a Ghoul, I would like to play it, but now I have to do something that is really similar to it, without the body attached, which is kind of a sad thing to do, although Ness would have had the perfect answer with the Abusive Sergeant. He
absolutely would, yeah, but what's really interesting about that is Revenge against Zoo is actually a stronger card when you draw badly. You know, I've heard people say the drawing badly plus revenge combo is something that you can have in Warrior.
You're getting damaged.
Right.
And
you draw badly, you
back.
get beaten up, and then suddenly revenge is game winning. Because Nicslay actually has quite a strong curve here throughout the next few turns, it's a double-faceted decision because he says, okay, I'm going to be able to fight for the board with the Barnes Ironforge Portal Cairn that I have here, which means I'm less likely to need to rely on Revenge. And also, because of that fact, I'm going to be stopping the Zoo from going face as much, and my Revenge is less likely to ever get activated. So using the Revenge there just for a little bit of early board control, I think it's actually a really strong piece of recognition from Nicslay as to the way this game is going.
Definitely true, especially when you have a hand like that, 4 into 5 into 6. You will not have time to play it unless your opponent will go wide again with the board. But I don't think that's the case, even if there's the Knife Juggler. The Barnes is still the play.
One Twilight Summoner, please.
Let's see. Is it the Twilight Summoner? No. But it's one of the worst cards.
It is. There are very, very few bad outcomes for Barnes in this deck. There's the N'Zoth itself. There's the Justicar. That's pretty much it. The Acolytes are fine. They're not the insane blowout sometimes that Twilight Summoner or Cairn can be, but this deck is very, very heavily tilted to making sure that Barnes gives you a strong outcome very consistently. So the Justicar getting hit there is actually pretty unlucky for Nicslay. And based on that early decision, he was relying on a good outcome from this Barnes to be able to fight for the board because he gave up his board clear in the Revenge. So the fact that he did get a real low roll from the Barnes is actually unlucky, not just purely on odds, but also because of the way that he's decided to play the game with this Barnes out, with the odds of a good outcome from this Barnes in mind.
And now Ness, well, Ness has way easier choice. Getting the Soulfire from the Dark Peddler is also great for him because now whatever he hits, it's still a good outcome. If he hits the Golem with the Soulfire, that is of course perfect because not only he spawns a minion on board but draws a card, but even if you just discard the Knife Juggler, you still cycle, and that's enough. Wow. Well, this is kind of nuts. I don't know what to say about this Zoo draw because it's like, it seems like it's unstoppable unless there will be a Brawl next turn, but then still there's an easy way to refill your hand with the Doomguard, because you still have 2 minions on board.
Yeah, this is actually just the perfect setup against Brawl. This is a situation where it is not worth playing around Brawl one little bit. You're almost happy if Brawl happens here. Obviously, if there's no good answer and they just lose the game, that's great, but your opponent doesn't have a Fiery War Axe equipped. They don't have any board presence, and they only have 5 mana available. So if Brawl comes down here, you still keep a minion, they don't gain any life that turn, you push Doomguard then the next turn and you're just going in. So Ness has found himself in a perfectly comfortable position, and Nicslay will be missing the Revenge here, but even then he's been hovered at this life total 16, which the Revenge wouldn't have been active anyway. So Ness has actually navigated this game very, very well. We'll say he's got a little bit fortunate with the way the draws have lined up and the fact that Barnes did not have a positive impact either, but he's navigated the cards that he did get very, very well to get himself in this position.
Now let's see. Wow, this is a really good recognition of what can happen in the upcoming turn, because he had an option to kill actually the best possible minion for a bash, right?
Yes.
Killing a free minion with a bash, it's the best possible thing that can happen. But still, there's a looming threat. Doomguard on turn 5, discarding 2 cards and drawing 2 cards is basically an insane minion, right? You don't. When you consider this matchup, Zoe will not deck out. He will always have cards in his deck before the match is ending. Because you either kill your opponent or you just die because you just lose control on the board, right? So treating your cards in hand as a pure cycle doesn't really matter what you lose. You just treat it as a blank.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And this decision from Ness I like as well. Again, he's still in that same situation where Brawl is okay for him. He's kind of wanting to develop this game in a way where he gets the Brawl, if it is there, out of the hand from Nicslay, and then can follow up with Doomguard, because the exact same situation I described last turn applies this turn, where Brawl is just perfectly fine for him. So he doesn't go all in with the Doomguard, he taps to keep his resources high, still generates a ton of power on the board with the Knife Juggler and the Flame Imp, and yet again, he's just asking those big questions to Nicslay that Nixlay's hand just does not have an answer to right now.
Yeah, and Nicslay will kind of have to rely on RNG to get a charge minion or a taunt minion from this.
Do you have the artifact?
Unfortunately, it's in the lease. Still can get the synergy with the Shield Slam, but it doesn't really buy that much time. 6, 8, 9 damage on the board, and a potential 5 damage from Doomguard, because he kind of knows that there's a Doomguard in the hand based on what he did last turn. So he has to take that into account.
I think Ness can just keep going here. Same plan as last turn. Keep the resources high. Make sure he doesn't get blown out by anything flashy like a brawl off the top. He's probably, you don't have to give this hand from your opponent credit for having anything in it. You don't have to credit the second revenge. You don't have to credit brawl. The reason for that is there's only one card in hand that's been held for a long period of the game, and the fact that you are playing against quite a slow control deck, you're allowed to give that card credit for just being a slow, clunky card that can't be played. You don't have to assign it as like a key card that they're holding in the matchup. The other card, the shield block, was only just drawn on the previous turn. So you can afford to just assume your opponent's hand is completely resource dry in this situation and just work out the world where you win the game most often. And that might just be playing around a top-decked brawl from your opponent.
And then, even if that's a top-deck brawl, I'll probably not trade at all. Oh, he's going for the Doomguard.
He's going for it. Interesting.
Okay. So he changed his line of play.
A little bit. I mean, this might just be the turn he smells blood, or this might be the turn where he says, hey, I can create a board state here where even if my opponent's turn is brawl, I have a 50-50 of at least keeping a 3 health minion on the, or 3 power minion, sorry, on the board, which is, still a reasonable amount of pressure on top of everything that he's able to follow it up with. And yeah, Nicslay just completely whiffs that turn.
Yeah. Super passive turn. His own out was actually the second shield block, or a bash. A slam into an execute, an example. And that
second
was
shield slam, you mean, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
second shield slam.
Yeah. So yeah, he's just going to keep on going in now. But here's the problem. Here's why I have like a small issue with that Doomguard being on the board. Now that you haven't got the job done immediately, you're starting to become vulnerable to brawl with each turn that gets played past. And I think maybe that brawl being drawn at any point in this game is something you still could have beaten with a slightly different sequencing. It does not matter. The brawl was not drawn. Nicslay took the aggressive line of using that revenge early, which again, I agree with. Based on the way his hand looked, I think that was a solid decision. It just did not pan out. Ness was able to capitalize on that moment of weakness from the Barnes turn, and yet again, we could be looking at a Zoo sweep. The amount of people that have come up to me today when I ask them how they've done. This is a thing that you do all the time in a Swiss environment. You meet a player, first question, what's your record like? How did you do in the last game? I just keep hearing, yeah, I 3-0'd with Zoo.
Well, easy peasy, right? I mean, you have a lot of time to just wander around, see the DreamHack, have fun.
There you go.
That's actually a benefit while playing aggressive decks. And it's also less, let's say, mind fatiguing, right? I mean, not to diminish like aggro players, but
no. Just purely amount of time, right? If you can get it done quickly in a 3-0. I think Firebat spoke about this specifically, right? About just being in a position of playing a large amount of Hearthstone over a long time. So if you're able to bring the decks that get the job done quickly and efficiently, that is actually to your benefit at the later stages of the day and the later stages of the tournament.
Yeah, and now we see the matchup that's actually super popular as the third game in most of the matches, because it's Zoo against the Druid. I think that, I'm guessing that's probably just talked to death, that this matchup favors the Zoo heavily, historically speaking as well.
Yes, he's saying this with such resignation. It's like, I'm sorry guys, you've all heard us say this 100 times already.
Yeah, because
yes,
that's
Zoo
proof,
beats
right?
Druid.
I mean, the only way that Druid makes a comeback here is the proper usage of innervates.
Yeah.
And without Keeper of the Grove anymore in the game, like, okay, it is in the game, right? But not in current.
Yeah, it's in the game. I get it from Ironforge Portal every time, so yeah.
That's super bad, man. But yeah, Keeper of the Grove was a power to behold in this matchup, and now Nicslay is just staring at a board of small minions.
Is this curve good? Thinking. Double 1-drop into Direwolf, into a Imp Gang boss, curving out to a very, very possible empty hand Doomguard or a one card discard Doomguard. So this is looking like a very aggressive opening from Ness. And Nicslay has all the ramp that he needs right now, but ramp is not necessarily what gets the job done against Zoo. They need ways to fight back onto the board. Blood Mage swipe, Azure Drake Innovate swipe, big turns into Arcane Giants. Those are the kinds of thing that you're going to be looking for.
To be honest, with this kind of draw, Nourish has to be used, at least the first one has to be used as a ramp. Because you will not have time to play every single card that you will draw from the Nourish. You just sacrifice an entire turn of tempo, so let's say 5 mana this turn, to draw 3 cards. The 3 cards will probably be... What, you really want to draw cards this turn?
So if he was to draw cards this turn, next turn he can cast Moonfire Arcane Giant and still have 3 extra cards in his hand. It's a consideration. Without that Giant being drawn for exactly the amount of mana that it cost, then I wouldn't have considered it at all. But he can still have this same quick turn next turn, which is Arcane Giant coming down onto the board, and have 3 additional cards in his hand by drawing cards. I think I would have thought about it for a long time and still ended up making the ramp play, but definitely that Giant draw just gave me a moment to pause for thought.
Okay, can understand that. Now, the thing I was spending some time on was the Moonfire. Because if your plan is to play the Arcane Giant, for sure, you probably will have to play it, the Moonfire this turn anyway, but in case you get a swipe from the top of the deck, leaving up that 1/1 was probably better to just kill, you know, a 3/2 that will be played the next turn.
Sure.
But still, that's a far-fetched plan.
Yes, it absolutely is. And now, I think with that 8/8 coming down, the time for board control is over. Ness is just going to be on the face plan here. 1 Silverware Golem, please, is what he will be screaming right now. That's kind of like Silverware Golem, except it's the exact opposite in every single way. So I'm sure we are just going to see the Doom Guard come down, and we are going to see the face get slammed as hard as possible. Nicslay needs to make a minor miracle happen here with this next draw, or sequence of draws with the Nourish.
So just a swipe doesn't really do much. You're at 6 HP. If you draw a swipe, Feral Rage, that's 8 points of HP. You can draw 3 cards.
Feral Rage into Living Roots #2, and then Feral Rage for armor looks okay. You snipe down the dog with the roots, you trade the Giant into the Doom Guard, you gain the armor with the Feral Rage. You hope that the Nourish picks you up Moonfire #2 as well, so you can pick up some tempo with the Malagos on the following turn.
Miss, a miss, and a miss.
That is a potential win condition. He is still alive just with the Feral Rage, but that 1 extra removal spell could have made all the difference here. Not only now, because without the dog dying, there's actually a very, very easy trade on the Arcane Giant here that can buy Ness even more time.
That's what I exactly wanted to say. The Possessed Villager with 2 attacks is actually pretty bonkers when you think about it, in this setup especially. And wait, that was a Knife Juggler, right? So,
that is a Knife Juggler, yes.
So you would like to trade first, and then you want to play the Imp to guarantee the 1 damage going to the face. Something that Ness doesn't even need to think about is the fact that you want to kind of overextend this matchup. There is no Brawl, there is no Starfire in most of the decks that the people are bringing here. So the saddest thing that can happen to you is actually a foul nose into a swipe. Positioning, yes, I think that should be kind of made differently.
I guess, I mean, the deck lists are revealed, so I'm not personally sure whether Nicslay is running Ancient of War. If he is running Ancient of War, it's possible that Ness wants the maximum amount of power that he can daisy chain on one side of his Direwolf.
But you want to have the Imp on the left side of the Knife Juggler, so it kind of dies before, right?
Yes, very possibly, that's true, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about whether he wanted it on the left-hand side of the board, the other side of the in-game boss, but
okay.
Yeah, having it on the right-hand side means he can chain more power into a large minion if he does want to go that way without getting interrupted by the boss, but you're probably right that it should be on the left-hand side of the Knife Juggler.
Okay, well, something that we have seen already, actually that was nuts, when Dawn played the Ragnaros into the buff, to snipe the Councilman. Was actually it.
No such lucky snipe this time for Nicslay. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying these words again. It's a 3-0 sweep. It's a sweep for our UK Swiss King himself, Torpedo's own Ness. And Raven, I feel like I can't say the words Torpedo's own without feeling that beaming smile coming across to the side of my face.
And a smirk.
Yeah, definitely. I'm 100% happy for Ness winning, of course. And also, you know, to rein in my bias a little bit, Zoo is just doing it again. We've seen this. I think this is the main story of this tournament so far, is with the Shaman out the window for most players in terms of the ban. Zoo is just dominating this, like, completely.
But I would like to just say that if people are complaining about this fact, they can think about it that in case the Zoo wouldn't be so popular right now and great at the same time, let's say this deck that would be doing so greatly for almost every single player would be a control deck. Everyone would be praising those players. Right? Because they're sweeping 3-0 everyone with a control deck, and oh, that's so crazy and good. But the same thing happens, like, deck is a deck. And if Zoo is just doing great in metagame,
that's
good,
it.
right?
Yeah, Zoo is performing in this tournament because of the expectation of what the metagame was going to look like.
Yeah, exactly.
And this happens every single tournament. There's always, or at least more often than not, a singular archetype that stands out above the rest because it's positioned well to perform.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why people are bringing Ishard Druid, right? That's a deck that's kind of bad against Zoo. And so people are just taking the bite and just saying, yeah, Zoo is great in this metagame, let's play that. And it seems to be working.
Yeah, and it's been working for Ness, who is with us now. Congratulations, mate. Good work.
Thanks.
It was very, not the longest series in the world, but everything seemed to go pretty well with Zoo. How did it perform with you throughout the Swiss? Because obviously we've not seen you on stream until now, but you did pretty well through the Swiss to get to here, so...
Yeah, in the Swiss, Zoo was basically like that as well. I was freeing lots of people, especially with Druid as well. So basically, Druid and Zoo were carrying me. My warrior is 0-3. Sums it up.
Brilliant.
Sick.
So I'm like 15-1 with Druid.
You just get around that by just not playing the warrior.
Yes.
Just win with the other decks.
I remember the days when you used to play control decks and actually win with them. I remember when you won Insomnia with Priest. Now you're just a filthy tempo player like the rest of us. What happened, man? What happened?
He fell so far.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the meta is right now. Like, I think the new expansion will shake things up a bit, which would be really good. But right now, Zoo is just one of the best decks, and you can't deny that. But you also have to prepare for Shaman and Druid as well, and you can't really tech for everything. So some people have thought, I'll just not play around Zoo, and now Zoo's doing really well.
That's my kind of serious question here, is so many times we've seen Zoo winning at whatever point in the series it is, the opener or the second game, and then that Zoo sweeps. Like, why does no one have a counter to Zoo right now? Why is Zoo sweeping so many series?
Well, I think Nicslay did try to counter it, because that Ness warrior is meant to be very favoured.
Yes.
And I think he just drew really badly. I mean, I can't see his hand, but he used Revenge on turn 3. And at that point, I'm like, well, you must be pretty desperate if you have to do it like that.
Well, it's weird. I actually think it was the other way around, where his hand was kind of good. Like, he had Barnes into Ironforge Portal into Cairn, so he felt like with like a good Barnes outcome, that he was never going to get low enough to need the revenge.
Yeah, he takes the revenge early to make him get ahead going.
But it just kind of backfired because he got Justicar and not like Twilight Summoner or something, and it just blew up in his face.
Any death rattle minions would actually mean that he is healing.
Right.
Basically, you don't into like 5, maybe even.
It's something we saw from Reynard play yesterday. He played Barnes in his N'Zoth warrior and got N'Zoth, and he was like, "That's like one of the 2 minions in the deck that isn't a death rattle," and I got that one. But no, congratulations! I moved on to top 8. So these Swiss tournaments are just not being too much of a big deal anymore. Just the same old for you.
Well, other DreamHacks, I've never made it to top 16, so this is my first time making it, which is nice.
Nice, awesome.
People will remember.
Hope so. Maybe I'll win 2 majors in 1 year.
Yeah, that's not bad.
We'll see.
Not maybe. You will.
I will.
You will. You got
English
this.
people.
You got this.
With those 2 hands, then sure.
Exactly.
Hey, you got to get voted into that global brawl for us next year, so make sure you just get your name out there.
But no, congratulations again. You can go back to the hotel, sleep, and get some rest for your match tomorrow.
Don't drink.
Make sure you get some rest.
Yeah, I need some rest.
This is where I can enforce the teammate rules of go to bed and prepare.
Talkie dad over here. Like, check this out. Jeez.
The age difference is probably relevant. Thanks for that, Sol.
That's all right.
But no, that's going to be it for this match. We do have the next one coming up, and I do believe we have the bracket to check out as well. So we are just going to go to a short break, and we'll be moving into the next series of the top 16, and we can check out what's going on there. So don't go anywhere. This is DreamHack Winter, the Hearthstone Grand Prix.